did the first one. He's got another one planned right here. Another quadruple toe up, triple flip, triple toe loop, double toe loop.
Wow. Quite an intense minute and a half opening. Sort of a laundry list of jumps there, not a whole lot of choreography. The new system demands both.
Ilia's had his share of tragedy in his 25 years. 1999, the same year he won the World Junior Championship, his father electrocuted while plugging a drill into the wall of the family's Moscow home. And his longtime coach, Igor Ruzakov, died from leukemia in 2003.
He left Ilia a collection of music that he could use as he matured as a skater, and he also chose his current coach.
Like you always carry those people with you, especially the Olympic Games. If you're a cantilever and he loses his balance, it's easy to lose your balance when you're pulling your weight all the way back like that. Fall will cost him 1 point.
This new system makes the need for a mental calculator. You're calculating each jump and trying to figure out what you've done and what you haven't done. And if you start missing things and you're not able to do what was planned, it can all fall apart.
And then doesn't that affect your concentration?
Completely.
Well, I've got to tell you, from the first 3 quarters of the program, it was a very smooth, consistent, steady performance. I thought he was going to be able to carry it all the way through. It was unfortunate that he didn't at the last part. But there were some interesting moves, some steady kind of quality skating, but not a lot of flair. And
I think his fist pumping is for that opening quad. You'll see right here, he'll reach back. He gets really nice height. He almost over-rotates it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Gets backwards. Nice 1-foot landing. He's like, whew. Look at this. He reaches back. He vaults up in the air like 1, 2, 3. He's still rotating on the way up, and on the way down, he does his 4th rotation. Nice 1-foot landing.
Wow, that was gorgeous landing there.
And this is a shame, because he just needed his knees further forward, got too far back, and then wasn't able to cantilever it.
The scores, please, for Ilya Klimkin of the Russian Federation.
With his coach, Viktor Kudryavtsev, here are the scores for Ilya Klimkin. Early in the evening, the scores really don't mean all that much, except to the skaters, of course. 65.97, 65.22 for program components. The fall cost him a point deduction, and the total 130.19 for Ilya Klimkin of Russia.
Our next competitor representing Belgium, Kevin van der Perren.
Here's Kevin van der Perren of Belgium, as you see, 13th after the short program. This is his second Olympics. He was 12th overall in Salt Lake City, known for an array of high-powered jumps.
He's skating to Pirates of the Caribbean, and by the looks of it, he's already got a wound around his left thigh. I hope the program lives up to the effort he's put into his costume.
Very powerful jumper. Doesn't have the overall quality as the top skaters in this field, but a lot of power. The height and the distance of his jumps, very strong. Opens with a quadruple toe loop.
Good
It's
for
like
him.
2-foot landing, I think.
But a full revolution, and that's great to see. Now look at how he sets this edge right there. See him testing that edge?
Another nice triple Lutz there. Resting here, waiting for the halfway point in this program to kick in. Got a huge combination coming up. Triple, triple, triple. First one, a sow cow here. Triple sow. Triple toe. Oh, single loop. He did not have enough speed at the end of that to pull off the triple loop. Pretty fiery guy in practice. If he'd make a mistake, he'd get really angry, but he never quit. Triple Lutz on tired legs. The triple toe loop.
And he's not quitting now. That was a fantastic effort.
Bent over, his arms are coming down, he's really tired, he's in the last minute of his program. Probably the best effort we've seen from him all week. If the rest of his skating could catch up to his jumping ability, he'd be competitive, but there's too many holes in the program, and it just has little continuity. If he just get that going, he'd be great.
Look at the swash and that swashbuckling. Oh, that's a face for you.
the first skater who's been able to engage the audience. He's exhausted, though.
Oh, he's tired.
Chest is collapsed. It was a great effort. Jam-packed program. As you said, Scott, it needs the choreography. It needs the intricacy and the speed in between all the jumps.
Well, the crowd loved the jumping fireworks.
You know, he's a solid athlete. He's really a very powerful jumper and a powerful, strong person. He just doesn't have enough swash in that swashbuckling. You know, I mean, there just isn't enough in it to make him get out and get the audience to stand on its feet. Although I must say the Belgian contingent here is all standing up.
They opened really well. It's a quad toe. It looked like he had plenty of height, plenty of distance to do this. I don't know why he two-footed this. He's all the way backwards there, and both feet come down. Maybe just a little short. It was so big, you'd think you'd have plenty of size to complete the rotation. Just a little short of rotation.
And as Van der Perren comes off the ice, the judges will take maybe a look at a 2-foot landing. You see their computer console. They can call up replays. Then they punch in their scores. There are 12 of those judges, and the computer randomly selects 9 of their scores to count. The scores are anonymous. You don't know which judge contributed which score. And the old system, of course, you did know the judges were held accountable. Under the new system, the high and low marks on each element are thrown out too. The old system, you started with a perfect 6 and deducted from there. The new system, you start at 0 and add up. Highest point total wins.
The scores are these for Kevin Van der Perren of Belgium. The technical score, please.
And here are the scores for Kevin Van der Perren from Belgium.
Technical score
66.01 on technical elements, 66.02 program components. That adds up to 132.03 and puts him in first place.
132.03 points in the free program.
And there's a look at U.S. figure skater Angela Nikodinov, who is not skating competitively this season, but hopes to again someday. She sustained a burn injury to her hand in the automobile accident that took the life of her mother, Dolores, at the 2005 U.S. Championships in Portland. Angela, the daughter of Bulgarian immigrants, speaks the language fluently and is here at the Olympics as the coach of Ivan Dinev of Bulgaria. Angela was the alternate to the U.S. team in Salt Lake City, never competed in the Olympics, and here she is as a coach of a Bulgarian skater.
Our next competitor representing Bulgaria, Ivan Dinev.
Ivan Dinev, 15th after the short program. He also skated at the Olympics in Salt Lake City, where he finished 13th. He's 28 years old, a father, and representing Bulgaria here in Torino.
All the attention being put on the medal favorites, you tend to forget there's skaters of good quality from all over the world. Opening combination here, triple flip, triple toe, double loop. But you kind of take him for granted, and then you watch him, and he has really nice qualities to his skating. A lot of nice speed going into this triple axel.
Oh, wow. Did you see the way he fell out of the circle? My God, that lean of the body was just unrecoverable.
But he has to recover. Next to triple Lutz.
One of the requirements in spins is that you change the feet, change the edging, change the arm positions in order to gain more points. And in the meantime, many people struggle trying to just achieve all those positions rather than the spin part of the spin.
Tonight, throughout the competition, a lot of the skaters towards the mid part of their program will break away from the choreography a little bit to get their legs back under them and then just top it off with a difficult element. Another triple axel, again, tilted outside. Hard to save those landings when you're tilted to the left, you're landing right. Almost impossible to save.
The trick with the choreography in this new system is to choreograph those breaks where you can catch your breath without it looking like that. They'll often, like in this footwork sequence, it's intricate, but the speed has been taken right down.
This circular step sequence almost at a standstill.
You're required to do so many steps. There's only so much speed you can carry. Triple loop.
He's run out of steam. It's hard to find the balance while trying to collect so many technical points. A lot of skaters are sacrificing their second mark, the component mark, which used to be the old artistic impression mark.
And that is the main flaw in the system.
I think there's a learning curve. I think you can figure it out, but it's going to take some time. And we'll likely see it later in the competition with the skaters who know themselves better and know what they can handle.
Oh, a very sad ending. He just really even forgot what the phrase of the music was, just didn't care. You know, so many of these programs are like creating the program and then let's put the music to it. We've got all the dots connecting the points connecting the dots, and you know, it just doesn't make sense unless you're very, very talented to be able to rise above all of that.
Another look at that three-jump combination towards the beginning of the program. You'll see he'll reach back here for triple flip. It's 1, 2, 3 revolutions. Reaches back for the triple toe. Now watch the landing of this jump. Right there, he grabs the ice with his toe pick. He lands pretty much right on top of where he took off. And he won't get full credit for that because there was a bobble on the landing.
And as he leaves the ice, greeted by Angela Nikodinov.
During his first spin, his chain came off. You can see it around his neck, and he actually had to stop, grab it, and throw it away. One more thing to think about.
And Przysuke is some choreography.
Any points for that?
The technical score, please. His technical score is 57.97.
Here are the scores: 57.97, 58.50. That's a total of 116.47 and good for 5th place. So we've seen some of the early skaters, and coming up later, after a bad case of Olympic nerves, a stomach illness, and a disastrous short program, American Evan Lysacek looks to prove he belongs with the world's elite. Johnny Weir has been known more for outrageous comments off the ice, but tonight he wants to prove on the ice he's good enough to win an Olympic medal. But they're all chasing Evgeny Plushenko, nearly invincible since winning silver in Salt Lake City, and with a big lead heading into tonight's free skate. His parents sacrificed everything to make sure he had the opportunity. Tonight, he can pay them back in gold.
All right, thanks, Tom, and we'll have much.
We'll see two of the three Americans, Matt Savoy, who had a decent short program, and Evan Lysacek, who had a disastrous short program 2 days ago. In fact, Evan's problems began in the warm-up before the actual skate.
You can see in this triple axel, he really wasn't close. Nowhere near the quality that he normally delivers that element.
That's Coach Frank Carroll giving in some stern instruction, and then the skate itself.
And again, the triple axel, not close. Nowhere near his quality. You can see how devastated he was.
Then at practice yesterday with his mother, Tanya, he still looked distraught, and we understand they also had a touch of the stomach flu when he skated his short program. So mentally and physically subpar. So now warming up for the free skate. Is he doing better?
Oh, what a difference 2 days can make. He looks comfortable, happy, and totally in control of his skating once again.
Well, I'm surrounded by Olympic experience up here in our perch. Olympian, Olympic gold medalist, double Olympic gold medalist on the end down there, and we've seen the effects Olympic pressure can have. How did you deal with Olympic pressure?
I think everyone has to find their own way. When I worked with Brian Boitano before '88 choreographing his programs, I had the opportunity to watch he and Linda Lever work, his coach, and they left nothing to chance. Every possible variable was rehearsed so that when they got to the Olympics, a perfect performance was the norm, not an accident.
Well, in my two Olympics, 80, I felt really relaxed, skated well, had no problems. 84, I came in, I hadn't lost a competition in almost 4 years. I had a huge league going in a long program, but you can't train for adrenaline. You just can't train for that. And Dick, you won 2 Olympic gold medals. I mean, how did you deal with defending an Olympic title?
Well, that was the same thing as you said. I was 4 years older. And once you have that, you realize the pressure, you realize the importance, and it really gets to you. That's why I was so much in favor of the way Plushenko has handled his warm-up here. He gets on, he does it, and then he leaves the ice. And that was terrific.
Charisma, take your time. Lots of attitude. Gorgeous landing. Back up. Beautiful.
A whole different message this time. Instead of you can do this, it's now when you do this.
A whole different reaction, too. His eyes are alive.
We talked about Olympic pressure. It might be family pressure as well, with 29 family members in the stands watching. Evan Lysacek trying to improve on that 10th place short program.
Better. He's attacking instead of approaching this program with kind of a defensive feel. He's just the intensity of the choreography, building speed into his first combination, triple Lutz into triple toe loop. Good speed here. Triple Lutz, easy. Triple toe loop, even easier.
That's the Evan we've seen all week.
Fell on this in the short program, triple axel, another combination, triple axel.
Well choreographed. Great dramatic effect with those two spins.
See the difference in quality in this part of the program where he's trying to get his legs back under him and his breath back into his lungs. It's beautifully choreographed to disguise the fact that he is resting, waiting for the halfway point in this program to get those bonus points. Halfway through this program, triple axel here. Beautiful into double toe loop. Only one difficult jump left, right here, reach back into triplets. What a recovery! Last jump, double axel. And this is what's going to bring the house down right here. The passion in his skating, this footwork sequence down the center of the ice. This crowd is going to erupt.
He sustained the emotional commitment from beginning to end. It's brilliant.
Hey, good for him. Good for him. Good for him. Good for him.
Courageous, an Olympic recovery.
But you know, the pleasure of this moment will stay with him forever, long after he forgets where he ended up in the competition.
This Olympics for him is such a life lesson. Coming from the depths 2 days ago to pull himself to be able to do this, now he knows he can do anything.
He skated that performance perfectly.
Many of the family members here wearing red sweatshirts that say, "We believe." And you have to think after that free skate, Evan believes as well, and that's important.
That was great. That was great. You can do that when you stick what you can do in the well, right? All right, come on.
An absolute photo negative of the short program. Completely opposite.
We'll have his marks when we return. For Evan Lysacek's free skate, sitting with his coach Frank Carroll. The relief etched on his face as he concluded his program. And a smile. We haven't seen one of those for 2 days.
2 days ago, he had his face in his hands. Now he's watching every replay. What a difference 2 days makes.
And applauding his marks as he puts up a total of 152.58. Evan says that's more like it as he moves into first place.
Of the United States of America has earned a total
It's a personal best. A personal best after his personal worst. What a recovery.
At the Olympics.
Total of 220.13 points. Is currently in first place.
And following that will be his U.S. teammate, Matt Savoy. Matt Savoy, born in Peoria.
Our next competitor representing the United States.
Never really left Peoria in order to train. He's going to go to law school in the fall. Sort of flying under the radar here, 8th after the short program. And let's see what he can do in his free skate.
Starts right away with an easy triple loop. Something that sets Matt apart in the transitions from choreography into the jumps, like this triple axel, huge! Oh my!
He has something intricate choreographed before every single jump he does.
Combination here, triple flip, double toe.
The intricacies are not just to collect points. It really is an emotional expression. It represents who he is as a person.
Skating. He's truly a skater's skater. The quality of his positions and choreography, transitions from move to move. It's just every skater in this building is admiring him.
And I hope young skaters are influenced by him. He brings something special to this stage.
Difficult transition to this triple axel. Again, a nice triple axel.
This next jump to triple lutz was the only mistake he made at the U.S. Nationals a month ago.
Missed it in the short program as well. Triple lutz, a little scary on that one. A single toe to make it a combination.
Even the way he went into that back spiral. He's a skater who does old moves in new ways or unfamiliar ways, and that's what he's all about. Good for him. Good for him.
Well, Torino was long ruled by the House of Savoy. Maybe again tonight. Matt Savoy of the United States.
Skating after fellow American Evan Lysacek's miraculous recovery, he answers with a beautiful performance. United States is well represented here tonight.
Matt already has a political science degree from Bradley University, a master's degree in urban planning from the University of Illinois. He's going to Cornell Law School starting this fall.
And the most interesting part of that, he was magna cum laude.
Look at the size of this triple axel. You just take it for granted. He's such a quiet guy. Look at the height, the carriage across the ice, the edge on the landing is perfect. Triple toe loop like nothing. It's just amazing. Another look, reaches back right here. Triple Lutz. Watch, it's 1, 2, 3. A little scary on the way down, almost short of rotation. And he goes, oh, I got to do a combination. Oh, single toe loop is all I can manage because I'm out of ice.
The technical score.
And here are the scores for Matt Savoy. He needs 150.99 to take over the lead from Evan Lysacek. 65.80, 71.72. The total 137.52 puts him into second place and leaves Lysacek first. And a moment ago, he talked with Andrea Joyce.
A completely different Evan Lysacek back with me tonight. Evan, describe your emotions being able to come back like that in the free skate.
Well, I'm obviously happy with it. And I think I dreamed the Olympic dream so many times over the course of probably 10 years. And it just kind of, after the short program, changed for me and became more about courage and about getting out today and finishing the competition.
We've all been talking about your mental approach, your frame of mind in the short program, but tell me what happened to you physically after the short program.
Well, right after the short, on the bus ride back to the village, I got really sick. The stomach flu, which probably I had during the day of the short, but just because of adrenaline, I didn't really feel it until the adrenaline had left my body. So I missed a whole day of practice yesterday. Did about half of the warm-up this morning.
Had IVs in?
I had 2 IVs out of each arm yesterday. My veins kept collapsing because I was so dehydrated.
How did you put all of that, the short program and all of that behind you, and skate that well tonight?
Like I said, I think it took a lot of courage, and I was sitting yesterday on a doctor's table in the clinic with IVs coming out of, needles coming out of my arms, thinking there's no way I'm going to be able to get through this tomorrow.
Does tonight's performance take the sting out of the other day?
Still disappointed about the other day because I think if I had a combination of 2 good performances, I could have been on the podium here. But like I said, it became more about courage, and I'm proud of myself for sticking it out.
Congratulations on tonight.
Thanks.
Perhaps he'll think of what might have been, but for Evan Lysacek, redemption tonight with a beautiful free skate. Quiet moment backstage. There's been a lot of speculation on whether or not he would attempt the quad. He said that he probably wouldn't decide himself until just before he took the ice tonight. Meanwhile, taking the ice now is Emmanuel Sandou of Canada in his first Olympics. His mother Enza was born in Italy, and Emmanuel speaks Italian, so he's enjoyed his trip here immensely. Regarded as a skater who has unlimited but unrealized potential.
Skating to an original composition by Gordon Cobb.
Quadruple toe loop right here. Big, oh, could not land. Struggled in the warm-up with his jumps. And after that fall, I always say the hardest jump in skating is the next one after a fall, and it's a difficult jump, a triple axel. His preparation edge is key to setting up this jump, and you'll notice that his center balance, he carries it very high.
He popped it in the short program. the Plushenko camp have openly said that they feared Manuel the most, and that if he ever was able to put two programs together, even ever learn how to compete, he is clearly talented enough to be Olympic champion.
But he did beat Plushenko at the Grand Prix final 2004. But skating the Olympics is a little different proposition.
Triplets singled. You see the frustration.
Although this is his first Olympics, he's been on the international scene for about 67 years. So unlike Evan's meltdown in the short program, which was based on inexperience, this is based on lack of training.
For the quads out, tripled it, smart. Needed to get something on the board. Second triple axel right here. He's in the bonus, second half of the program. The most tired, another single axel. You can just see the resignation.
He's throwing it away. You know, this is a difficult music to skate to, and I appreciate the fact that he's trying to do something different choreographically, but it goes against his natural style. This is cold and angular. Naturally, he's hot-blooded and sweeping in his style, and I think that may be part of the problem, aside from the fact that he's notoriously known for inconsistent training.
He does so many things well. Not tonight. He really struggled throughout this performance, and this is another one he let get away.
Disappointing look for Emmanuel Sandhu of Canada after his free skate.
Well, he knows that he had an opportunity here to step up to the plate, and it just let it get away once again. Recurring theme, so much talent. Look at this quad toe right here. It's great height. Up in the air, you think he's going to land it beautifully, and the skates come down a little short of rotation sideways. Cannot continue to flow, causes the fall. Same with the triple axel. Look at these. Up in the air, 1, 2. He has 3.5 revolutions, comes down a little short. The skates cannot glide. He can't flow out of that jump, causes another fall. 2 points gone right there.
And we'll check his marks.
Score is 52.27 points.
The technical score first. He needs 150.39 for the lead, not likely to get it. In fact, well short at 120.49, which is 5th place, and Evan Lysacek remains in first.
He has a combined.
Skate is Sean Sawyer of Canada. 12th after the short program in his first Olympics. In fact, he repeated as Canadian bronze medalist to get the 3rd Canadian Olympic spot on his 21st birthday, January 14th. Smile on his face as he heads for center ice. Enjoying the moment.
This is his first big outing on the international scene, and he's been loving it, loving the practices, skating with just such joy and feeling none of the pressure.
To his skating. There's a lot of flexibility. He's getting a lot of speed into his first combination. Difficult jump right here, triple axel. Step out.
Succumbing to the pressure on that triple Lutz, turned it to a double.
He has a very pleasant line to his skating. The stretch back of his legs was in very good position. Certainly a lot better than some of the sloppier positions that we've seen on so many of the skaters.
Absolutely, and he uses his flexibility so well in his spins.
Oh, that's marvelous. Look at that.
Wait till you see his spiral.
There it is.
Marvelous, isn't it?
Gorgeous.
I have never seen a man do a spiral like that except for maybe Tyler Cranston, former
Tyler's
Canadian
wasn't
champion.
even that high. I was there.
Jumps into split jumps, and what a way to go into that combination.
Sean, just 21 years old, will try to stay around, no doubt, to compete in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, in 4 years.
Good catch footing there. A donut spin. He didn't drop the leg to grab the foot. He kept it high. Very nice position and style.
You see the quality in his overall skating. He spins well, he jumps well. His flexibility, his choreography, it separates him a little bit from everybody else, makes him unique. And you think in 4 years how he's going to mature and grow and be more experienced. He could be somebody we'll be looking hard at in Vancouver.
Well, I got to tell you something. I will stand up and applaud for him. I thought he was magnificent. The energy went through right to the end. There was no letdown. The style was there. The positions were there. All of Canada should be very, very proud of him.
Well, this new system is geared towards the all-round skater, and Sean is that. He's got incredible flexibility, and he's used it beautifully choreographed by David Wilson. This is an Ina Bauer that's rarely done by a man.
And it's different. It's unusual.
It's
the line
unusual.
Is superb.
It's refreshing. This incredible position. But it's used tastefully and appropriately placed within the music, and it all works together. He has a bright future.
And that future could begin tonight. A win over Emmanuel Sandou would be a great victory.
And he won that battle tonight.
Triple axel here. Didn't quite get the height he needed to complete the rotation, but he hung on. No fall. Not full credit, but pretty good.
His technical score is 55.13 points.
Well, I have an idea Sean Sawyer had a blast at these Olympics. His point total, 123.63, sixth place. But as Scott said, maybe a man to watch for the future. We'll be back later on with the primary medal contenders. And tomorrow night, the ice dancing. Welcome back to Palavella as the final group of skaters get ready to take the ice for their warm-ups. This group including Evgeny Plashenko, the leader, and Johnny Weir, who's chasing him from second place after the short program.
Flags waving, bells clanging, the place is going crazy. Long anticipated. Plashenko's waited 4 years for this moment, and what a time for Johnny Weir.
Evgeny Plashenko, aggressive as always.
Don't forget about Stefan Lambiel, Switzerland, the reigning world champion.
There are 6 men from 6 different countries, and this audience is going wild.
The Russians have won the last 3 gold medals in a row in men's singles. And so Evgeny Plashenko tries to become the 4th straight Russian man to win. Will he be the latest Russian to continue that dominance? Will all the sacrifices that have been made for his skating pay off tonight?
Мне удалось с ними соперничать, и мне удавалось выигрывать у них. У меня есть свой стиль, и у меня есть уже свой уровень. Я, конечно, хочу и стремлюсь быть лучшим.
Yevgeny was born in the city of Volgograd in southwestern Russia. When he was 11, the only figure skating school in town was closed, and he and his parents were faced with a harsh reality. In order for Yevgeny to follow his dreams, he'd have to leave home behind.
Огромнейший, красивейший, великолепная архитектура. То есть все здесь было. Но единственного не было, это, естественно, моих родителей, потому что родители остались в Волгограде зарабатывать деньги, чтобы меня содержать в Петербурге.
1,000 miles from home, Yevgeny found a mentor in legendary Russian coach Alexei Mishin. Slowly, his skating career began to blossom, but the childhood he left behind still troubled him.
Но было все настолько тяжело, отец не справлялся, потому что, по российским меркам это была, маленькая зарплата. Было настолько тяжело, что мы собирали бутылки, сдавали их, чтобы было хотя бы прокормиться.
When you want to believe in something, you must also believe in the struggle it will take to achieve it. Yevgeny's hunger brought him skating success and the respect and riches that come with it. Enough to finally bring his family together again. Tonight he skates not only for Olympic gold, but also for the 2 people who gave up everything so that he could pursue the one thing he always dreamed of.
Они работают, я их обеспечиваю, но они дали мне все. Они заслужили это. Без них, конечно, я бы не стал никем.
Well, family obviously plays a big part in Evgeny's life, moving his parents to St. Petersburg and getting married himself. Last June, he wed Maria Ermak, a sociology student whom he had seen for the first time a year earlier riding in a convertible. And by the luck of the draw within the final group, Plishenko will skate first. Then Lambiel, Weir trying to hold on for a medal in the middle. Buttle, Joubert, and Takahashi.
Great place for him to skate. He never had to get off the ice. He's still fresh from the warm-up.
Our next competitor representing the Russian Federation, Yevgeny Plishenko.
This program off the top is just loaded. End-to-end jumping, opening with that quad, triple hit the short program, quadruple toe, triple toe, double loop. Triple axel. Sacrificing the choreography to get through these jumps. Really no choreography at the beginning of this program. It's just ticking off these jumps one at a time.
Second triple axel. Wow.
Notice the way he divides the program. First jumps, then arm movements. Then jumps, then arm movements.
That's been the criticism.
Here they are.
But I think competitively, it's wise. He knows his limitations.
He is working the points. Triple X here is the last really difficult jump in this program.